They are having more stress on the mental plane. And as far as the Nidana for the Nijajvara is concerned, everyone knows that all the standard Nidanas for Dosha Kopa, as we see in the Sarvaroga Nidana, if I take Ashtanga Hridaya, first chapter of Nidana Sthanam, Tiktoshana Kashayalpa Ruksha Pramita Bhojanaihi, Dharanodirana, all these are the reasons for Bhagagopa. Similarly, Pitta Gopa Nidanas are there. That is what we find in Jara Chigils, Jara Nidanam also. Dosha Tais Dushta Pradushanaihi. There is no specific Nidana highlighted, but we know that all Nidanas are not becoming Jara. Only those Nidanas which can trigger the Jara Samprapti can be considered as Jara Nidana. Those Nidanas which can trigger the Jara Samprapti. So we should understand first the mechanism behind Nijajvara. Of course, we will start something based on the Nijajvara, at least a bird's eye view. I know that we cannot cover everything because, especially as I mentioned, learning Jara Chikitsa is the biggest challenge. Systematically. And it is not a story that if you learn Jara Chikitsa systematically, you have covered all Chikitsa. Nothing more to learn. Basically, everything is some extensions, that's all. Basics are same. So we should understand the mechanism behind Nijajvara. Jvaram is considered as a Vyadhi having spread on almost every part of our existence. We know that Shariram, Indriyam, Atma and Manas, these are the four quarters which form the Ayus, of which Atma may be exempted. The remaining three, Charaka uses the word Tritayatabi. That is how Charaka explains. Tritayatabi, that means Dehendriya Manastabi. Deham, Indriya and Manas. All the three are afflicted by Jvara. And also we should keep in one important point that Jvara should be considered as one roga which literally eats up ojas. All diseases eat ojas. They flourish eating ojas. That is how we have a word called Ojosana. Ojosana. All diseases are Ojosanas. And more specific is Jvara. Jvara is specifically Ojosana. That also should be kept in our mind. And how a Nijajvara happens, I am sure that everybody will be knowing the textual part. Taistaya dushta pradushanai amashyam pravishya amanugamya pithayacha srodamsi pakti sthanacha nirasya jvalanam vahi sahatena abhisarpandastavandas sagaram vagu. This pattern of explanation we might have learned. What is actually the story telling us? In a Nijajvara, whichever the dosha is, it all starts from a dushta dosha entering the amasya. A dushta dosha entering the amasya. And this disrupts the environment in Amashya. Or in other words, causes Amashya Dushti. Amashayam is a seat of Agni. So obviously, the Dushta dosha enters the Amashaya, disrupts the environment in Amashaya, and afflicts Agni. Afflicts Agni. Agni, as we know, is basically engaged in the act of Ahara Pajanam and formation of rasa. Pachatyannam, Vibhajane Sarakittau Prathak. So that is the first line of engagement. So when Agni is involved, that reflects in rasa also. Obviously, that gets transferred to the Rasavaha Srotas, causing their Shodham, some sort of a turbulence, which results in blockage of the Rasavaha Srotas, Pidhanam. Agni becomes Mandam. The dosha, dushta, Agni becomes Mandam. So Amam is again accumulated. When Agni is Mandam, Amam is getting more and more accumulated in the Amashya. Then this dushta dosha, along with the Amam, makes the Agni come out of its basic site in Amashya. It all sounds like a story. It is an advantage of Ayurveda, and it is many a times, or at least sometimes, this is the tough part of Ayurveda as well. Because we are storytellers. So certain amount of imagination is a must. When we say that Agni is situated in Amashayam, you should have something in your imagination. Similarly, when you say that, okay, this Dushta dosha is afflicting the Agni, and that is causing problems with the rasa, and it is transferred to the Rasavaha Srotas, causing its Pidhanam, then Agnimandyam, accumulation of Ama, dosha getting entangled or attached with the Amam, then the Agni is becoming displaced from its seat and it escapes to the outer part or the periphery or outside the Koshtam. So practically there is no Agni in its base headquarter, as if some sort of a some military coup or something like that happened, as happens in certain countries, displacing the existing ruler. They run out of their capital, and these rioters, they occupy their seat. So practically there is no ruling inside, whereas the ruler is running outside. So in the same way, there is no Agni in the Koshtam, in the Amashayam, but meantime Agni is wandering in the periphery. So this idea is very important, because the entire concept of Nija Jara Chikilsa revolves or spinning around this idea. So we should have some good picture based on this explanation of Jara Samprapti. It is because of this involvement of Amasya Dushti, Agni Dushti, Amam, that the Samanya Chikitsa of Jwaram is so specific in Ayurveda. That is very important. You know, in this present pandemic situation, again it was a testing time. Considering this as a viral fever, I don't want to go to the controversies behind the idea whether it was a normal viral fever or it was a manufactured fever or many other conspiracy theories. I'm not going to it. But considering this as a fever with the viral background, nothing more, the patients were given with high protein diet. I do not know. I have not yet reached that level of understanding. How do you treat a Jwarita with a rich, high protein diet, which is very difficult to digest? Of course, even in Ayurveda, that concept can be seen. Shuddhavada kshaya agandu jirna jvarishu langhanam neshyade teshu hihidam shamanam yanna karsanam. True, fine, great. But even in such situations, you see the word used, shamanam. Shamanam has 7 types. Conventionally, we learn 7 types of shamanam. Pajanam, Deepanam, Kshutrad, Adapam, Aruta. But all these are Karshanam. So there is an 8th type of Shamanam that is known as Brahmanam. Brahmanam Shamanam tu eva vayoho pittanilasya. So when you say that Shamanam yanna Karshanam, indirect meaning is Brahmanam. But the Acharya did not use the term Brahmanam. He could have easily accommodated based on his literary skills. It was not at all a difficult issue for an Acharya like Vagbhada to include the word Brahmanam in that sloka. But he did not. Instead, he used Shamanam yanna Karshanam. So even if that Brahmana is advised, this type of explanation, Shamanam yanna Karshanam, makes it a very crystal clear idea that even if you are going to give a high protein diet which is very rich and tough to digest, you should have a consideration of Agni. Because basically, Jwara is an Amasya Ashrita Vyadhi. Amam, Amayam. Jwaram is one of the classical Amayam. So without considering the status of Agni, you cannot do anything. That is very important. We will find many situations in support of such a stand. We will come to it. On the other side, when you have a Aganda Jwaram, its Samprapti is also important. Ye bhuda vishavayu agni kshada bhangadi sambhava kama krodha bhayadyascha tesir aganda vogana. That is how Aganda is explained. And in the Aganda Jwara, we have seen 4 subtypes. And we saw that in Nija Jwara, we need a dosha dushti, then its specific Amasya Pravesham, and a series of events subsequently. But in the event of an Aganda Jwara, It does not seek a pre-existing dosha dushti. Agandujvara does not seek a pre-existing dosha dushti. That is why it is told that Shuddhavada Kshaya Agandu Jirnajjarishu Lankhanam Neshyade. It does not seek a pre-existing dosha dushti getting attached to the Amashaya, causing afflictions with the Agni. So there is no meaning in going for a Lankhana Chikitsa targeting the presence of Amam in the Amashaya. It is a guest affliction. Bhudam, Visham, Vayu, Agni, Kshadam, Bhangam, Kamam, Krodham, Bhayam, etc., etc., etc. In Jwara we will find Oshadhi Gandham, Visham, Vayu, Agni. These are all examples. Take the case of Kshadam. It is a roga because it causes pain. Ruk, Rujandi. And to get afflicted by a Kshadam, you do not need a pre-existing dosha dushti. You are beaten by maybe a thick wood log, something like that. You do not require a pre-existing dosha dushti to get afflicted by that Kshadam. On the spot, immediate effect, you have pain. Sometimes it may be a wound due to the Kshata. It may be a wound sometimes. Then we call it as a Sadhyovrana. Sadhyovranastu Sahasa Sambhavandi Abhikhadatah Sadhyo Sambhavan. So it is a wound. And this Sadhyovrana obviously causes the Dhadukshobham, no doubt. It causes Dhadukshobham. Sometimes it damages some organs, sometimes some srotas. This causes pain. The functional status may be deranged. Loss of function can happen, which can be either permanent or temporary if you are lucky. And in a normal individual, the so-called a healthy individual, this vrana heals, the pain subsides, and the functional status is restored to the best level possible. Isn't it? The functional status is restored to the best level possible. But due to some issue or some factor influential, if this process of healing and functional restoration fails to occur, then the kshobha of the dhadus and the related tissues connected to that initiates a dosha dushti. Initiates a dosha dushti, and that dosha dushti gets attached to the vrana. That gets attached to the vrana. Now it is no more a Shuddha vrana or Sadhyo vrana. It is a Dushta vrana. When it is attached to a dosha dushti, it is known as Dushta vrana. I am explaining vrana because it has got all similar explanations as jvara. In vrana we find Nija Agandu division and also another division called Shuddha and Dushta. Doshair adhishtido dushtaha shuddhastair anadhishtitaha. In the same way, we can consider Jwara also. This differentiation is quite interesting because when there is as I explained earlier, when there is a Sadhyo Vranam or Kshatam, whatever it is, it tends to heal by its own, maybe with the minimum intervention, causing no involvement of dosha and not becoming dushta in a healthy individual. This is a standard practice. So this happens in the case of Jwara also, Agantu Jwara. When there is a pre-existing dosha dushti, please listen. When there is a pre-existing dosha dushti, still you can get a kshatam. A person with a pre-existing dosha dushti, like any other person, is prone to get a wound. But in such a situation, this vranam caused by the kshatam tends to become a dushta vranam very fast, because there is already a pre-existing dosha. Similarly, the most important stand that a Vaidya should have in the event of an Agantu Vrana is the avoidance